Hey, know-it-alls. Father Robert here. I thought it was time that you come back into my lab just to see what I've been doing. The FPV150 is the latest multi-rotor project that we've been working on Know-How. And one of the things that I've been thinking about doing is replacing the top plate. Now, this is a decent top plate. It weighs about 5 grams, but the problem is that it doesn't have much in the way of mounting. So to connect the receiver to this, I use some double-sided foam tape. To connect the FPV transmitter, I'm just using a zip tie, and then the receiver wires are actually connected via zip tie. It works, and it's relatively low cost and low weight, but it looks a little bit ghetto, especially once I add in the FPV camera itself, because that's just going to be foam. That's styrofoam that keeps it from vibrating. So I got to thinking, could I make something 3D printed that's just as strong? And this is not actually that strong. This flexes quite a bit. It's the entire frame that keeps it from flexing. So could I make something maybe about 2 millimeters thick that could give me all of the structural integrity of this top plate, but give me mounting points for my receiver, for my FPV transmitter, for my antennas, and of course, an anti-vibration plate for my FPV camera. Now, typically that wouldn't be possible at this weight because that adds a lot of stuff, but I've made this. Now, this is just an early prototype, but as you can see, it's a 2 millimeter thick 3D printed filament. It has these little spars off the back that will be used to tie the receiver wires to. And actually what will happen is they'll integrate with the little plastic protector pieces at the end of the antenna. It should give me a nice sturdy structure at the same time keeping the antennas away from the propellers, but in a position where they can get the best reception from the transmitter. Now, the big thing is going to be this. You may notice at the front here, this is an anti-vibration plate. There's a piece that I've hung off the front of this frame that has room for 2 of the vibration dampening rubber balls, as you can see there. And then this plate floats free, and this is where the camera will actually be mounted. The idea is it will mount something like this. So I'll have that plate. This is actually a prototype plate that I've got on there right now. It doesn't have the anti-vibration mount yet. And it will look kind of like that. There'll be a little bump at the top, and the camera will hang off the front. I do need to do something about protecting the camera, because if there's a frontal collision, the camera will take the brunt. It will get destroyed. Not real big on that. But I didn't want to push it back inside the frame because that has issues of its own. Essentially, I didn't want it to rub against any of the internal connectors, any of the materials that I have inside the frame, since that's already going to be really, really crowded. Now, there are a few things. I've designed a, where is that? This will be the holder for the receiver. So this will actually go around the receiver unit, and it should clip it in. When I'm doing the final assembly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to integrate it into the 3D structure itself. This part will probably be removed because I'm, again, going to try to save weight. But then I'll be able to push this forward and back so that I can access the USB port without having to take off the top plate. This kind of solves the problem of having everything so cramped in there, because right now, with the current top plate, I have to remove this and the receiver and FPV assembly in order to get at the innards, because, it's just so tight. There are a couple of more improvements I want to make to this. This is coming up around 5 grams. I think I can get it down. This is a bit too heavy on the lateral support, not enough on the vertical support. I think I can fix that. I could probably also go to 1 millimeter thick on some of these pieces, like for example the antenna extenders. The other thing that I'd really like to do this at some point, I want to figure out a way to integrate a power harness up top. So rather than having a separate connection for the FPV camera, FPV transmitter, the receiver, and then the flight control systems, I have a single connector that connects up top, and it gives power and connectivity to all of those devices. But that will probably happen when I move over to a one-wire PPM system. So this is something that I've been working on. The STL files are going to be made available when we do the episode on Know-How. But until then, know that it's actually quite easy to make a top plate for your FPV150. If you're building it, that will keep the weight down, and at the same time keeps you from having to use, say, double-sided foam tape or zip ties to lock your devices to the plate. Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballas here, and goodbye from the studio.